Not yet, but almost. I know, we are already. I hope my mom is not watching. I didn't tell her that I'll be having a live stream. I'm supposed to be at work. Remember those days when I hope my mom's not, or my parents don't know that I'm doing X or Y, because I'm not supposed to be here. All right, so let me open the chat. I don't think we have anyone on the chat, but just in case, I'll keep it open to monitor it. And yeah.
What is the chat?
It's in every platform. So
it's in the Restream, right?
Yeah, I'm using the Restream. So Tuli is on the chat. Hello, Tuli. How do you say? Well, I'll ask her in another way because I don't know if it's Tuli or Thuli or Duli, or I'm always trying to pronounce names correctly. But yeah, sometimes we only read them, we don't hear them, so it's hard. So yeah, cool, folks. So as most of you are aware today, this meeting is about. Let me check. Let me find the link. It's about Studio Vision and Plans, and I hope every one of you here is aware of what Studio is. If not, what I'm talking about is this thing. Let me just find it right there. Chat is also trying to join. So I'm talking about this studio, right? Which happens to be on GitHub Async API Studio repo. And yeah. So the meeting for today can be found there. Let me share all the links on the chat as well. Oops. Well, all the links there. Cool. So yeah. Thanks all for coming today and for listening to this old guy already. So I know that most of you have been somehow familiar with Studio already, and that what you've seen so far is just like a playground. So we used to have, back in time, we used to have one editor called Editor, and it was editor.asyncapi.org. We removed that, we deprecated that in favor of Playground. Then we deprecated Playground in favor of Studio, right? But the reality is that none of them went beyond being a fully featured solution. It was just a playground, an editor, an online editor to quickly play with Async API a little bit, and that's it. Like none of them were helping you in many ways, right? So just it was just like a simple solution. So let me share. I have the screen in the middle, and this is a pain. So let me share my screen here. Cool. So all right. So yeah, so this meeting is precisely to share with you my plans or my vision with this. I don't like to say my plans because I want this to be a community effort. So yeah, I don't want it to be just like, look what Frank came about with, and now we all have to follow blindly, right? So no, I want you to be familiar with it, so that we all can discuss it, and can be, let's say, participants, or somehow get involved in this if you feel in the mood. Of course, it's not mandatory. But yeah, I don't want it to be something super like just my stuff, right? This is what Fran said. So yeah, what is it about? I don't know if you saw it, but I'm going to show you a Figma prototype, right? Which I think it summarizes better what I'm talking about. And then we can discuss the details. Okay. So what am I talking about? So what I want to do with Studio next, right, is that it becomes more than just a plain editor, right? So right now it says that it's just that. I think that's cool, but it's not enough. It's good that we have this kind of experience, that we have an editor and so on. I'm not talking by any means that we should remove that. I think it's a useful tool to have an editor, a quick editor that you can, an editor that you can quickly use to paste your async API definition there and to play with it and see how it works and so on. That should still be the case. It shouldn't be, so this new tool shouldn't be in your way, the other way around, right? So it should be as simple as the playground, as the current studio, right? But it should be enhanced in a way that helps you do more stuff. So yeah, what I'm talking about is that we keep this functionality, which is the one that we have right now. This is still possible. This is still viable. You can land here directly if you want. That will still be possible without having to do anything, without having to configure anything. Just the same way you land on studio.asyncpy.com, you should be able to land here. Thing is that if you want to do more, for instance, the current problem that I see with this kind of experience is that you have to type all this thing here on the left side, right? That's a lot. Not a lot about typing. I mean, that's easy. You can type it quickly if you want, if you know how, right? Or you can copy paste it and so on. But you need to learn the syntax. And as the document gets bigger and bigger, it becomes harder and harder to manage. You probably end up with hundreds or thousands of lines very easily, right? So this document, the Streetlights Kafka API, which is an example that we have, I think it's probably close to 100 lines, and it's just a simple example. So imagine. So yeah, and it becomes really difficult to manage. So probably an online editor is not the best experience. I think it's cool, it's good to have it, but it's not the best experience. Also, this is an online editor, and we all know how developers are, right? So we're all developers, and we know that every developer has their own favorite editor and snippets and shortcuts and so on, right? So these are not going to work on your online editor because yeah, it's an online editor for everyone. It's not very configurable, and we could make it configurable, but we don't want to recreate Visual Studio just for async API, right? Also, you might not like Visual Studio. You might like IntelliJ IDEA or whatever other editor, and yeah. So why do you have to use this editor, right? On top of that, there is one of the biggest issues here is that you need to learn this syntax. You need to learn this. So that's a lot. Think about it, like you need to learn a lot. Imagine that you're landing here. Some of you are right now landing on async API for the first time a few weeks ago. So you're gonna feel represented by what I'm saying. So you gotta read, you gotta learn all this stuff. And not only being able to read, but you gotta be able to write it. which requires an additional level of skills, right? Like you need to be able to type it. So you probably, if you want to type something like this, you have to probably be jumping from the docs to the editor, to the docs to the editor, docs editor all the time, right? So to be able to understand how to type this. So this is freaking slow. And to be honest, I even consider that this is an egocentric approach for us. It's really egocentric from our point of view as Async API initiative, as the Async API community, to ask every user doing event-driven architectures or APIs to learn our syntax, to learn the syntax of an Async API file. That's too much, right? That is way too much. So it is very egocentric from our side. It's just because it's good that we created, I'm not saying the opposite, but I don't think people should be or must be learning the Async API syntax, right? It's okay if you want to learn it, of course. I usually compare this to a PDF. So nobody in the right mind is writing PDFs by hand, right? So you don't open the text editor, the plain text editor on your laptop and start typing the PDF syntax, because you probably don't even know how the PDF syntax looks like, right? Say, for instance, another format, Microsoft Word or XLS, right? Like Excel, the Excel format. Why would you type an Excel sheet? This word is really easy, hard for me. So, why will you type an Excel sheet on your plain editor? You have Microsoft Excel, you have Google Sheets, and all this stuff, right? So you go to one of these editors and create it and edit it and remove stuff, and you don't have to learn how this is all encoded in the file itself, right? Because that will be unideal, let's say, right? To say the least. So yeah, why are we then asking people to learn the Async API format? Because it's a little bit more readable, maybe, right? Because that's where we're coming from. Like, we're coming from OpenAPI, we're coming from GraphQL, we're coming from gRPC. For sure, it has something to do with it, right? Like, we're coming from this past or this present, actually. So that affects, of course. But should we keep doing it, or should we provide as an initiative, given that we're offering tools, should we be providing the tools and the means for people to actually use Async API without having to use Async API, having to learn Async API? So that's my idea with Studio. So my idea for the future of Studio is we should be able to use, or a user should be able to leverage Async API spec and tools, both of them, right? Without having to learn this complex syntax, without having to ever type it, right? That's the ideal situation. If you want to, of course, we're not gonna hide it. You can come here and you can type things here and there. You can edit it by hand. If you feel like a hacker, go ahead and do it, right? But it shouldn't be needed. So Accept is saying, so we're building Studio in the more user-centric and friendly way. Like, the user will choose what it wants, and we will provide sample template code to file at the left side. Not really. So we already do that. It's becoming, let's say, it's becoming more user-centric, sure, and friendly, sure. Does it have to do about code? No, I don't think it has to be with code, right? So what I'm proposing here in this next big iteration is that we introduce the concept of this visual editor, right? So this is this view and this view, so code and this new view are the same thing in essence. So this is to help you edit an Async API file, a single Async API file. So this is not about, it's not something different. It's the same thing. It's like typing the ASIN-KPI file, but without having to type it, without having to learn the ASIN-KPI syntax, right? So it's an editor. It's a visual editor, right? It's, yeah, like Rishi is saying, like it's providing the building blocks, right? So right here we have the application at the center, because it's an ASIN-KPI file, right? Which is usually defining the application. I would say more than usually. So yeah, so let's imagine that we have a user registration service, right? That provides a bunch of things, and among all the things that it provides, it connects to a Kafka broker. It connects, and it also provides a WebSocket API and an HTTP API, as you can see here on the diagram, right? So what it means is that a potential WebSocket client that we don't know of course, beforehand, can connect to our service using WebSocket, right? And can perform these operations. This is scaled, and it's not proper. Oops, I don't know. That's even worse. So this is scaled, and you cannot probably see the whole thing. So I'm gonna just do this. Damn it, why is it not scrolling? Anyway, so on user signed up, so on. So you can subscribe to user signed up events, right? On the WebSocket connection. You can post / users using HTTP to our service, but our service at the same time is gonna send a message to send a couple of messages to the Kafka broker, right? So what we're doing here is we're taking all the logic, we're taking all the stuff that we have on an ASIN-KPI file and moving it to a visual editor, something that you don't need to you don't need to code at all, right? So for instance, if I'm clicking here, what I will see is this user registration service is connected to these two servers, right? So we know that yeah, it's publishing or subscribing to these servers. We know that it's performing these operations, sending that a user has been removed, receiving when a user has signed up, sending when a user has signed up, and a create user request, right? That will have a response, as you can see in the icon, right? So this is like we are replying, right? This is the post / users actually. So and then it's going to be dealing with a bunch of events. User signed up event V1, V2, the same for removing the user V1, create user request V1, create user response V1. So all the messages and payloads are going to be flowing around, right? All of this without having to type any ASIN-KPI code. How do you do that? You can add a new server here. You can click here to add a new connection to the server, like a new operation, right? Another one here. You can click on any of them and remove them. In case you want to remove one of the operations, you can click on any of them and edit it, as we're going to see it next, and so on, right? So all is like just a graphical UI, right? So if we go to, for instance, let's say if we go to a Kafka broker, right? We can edit all the details, right? Like what's the protocol, where is the host, what is the Kafka broker located, right? We can use variables as usual. In the case of, so we're providing the Kafka bindings in this case, because we know that's a Kafka binding, it's a Kafka broker, sorry. We can automatically provide fields to help you fulfill the information for the Kafka bindings on the server. So where is the schema registry URL, if at all? Where is the schema registry, or what is the schema registry vendor, Confluent in this case? What are the security mechanisms? Like, are you gonna provide a user password? Are you gonna provide OAuth, whatever it's needed for the server, right? All of it, you know, like tags, external documentation, and so on. All of it is gonna translate behind the scenes to an ASIN-KPI document, right? Without you having to learn ASIN-KPI. That's the whole thing, right? So if we click here to an operation, you will see that this is like a send user signed up event. where are we sending these events? Okay, so these two events are going to be sent to the Kafka broker. So we have V1 and V2. This means that there's a logic on the application that certain times it will be sending V1 and other times it will be sending V2. We don't know. That's the logic of the application. So Async API doesn't let you define that logic. That's what the code is for, right? So, so yeah, we only know that potentially these two events can be published to the Kafka broker on the user signed up topic on Kafka, right? So this essentially is translating to a subscribe, a subscribe operation in Async API v2, and this is translating to a send operation on Async API v3, right? Same thing, you can edit stuff here, you can reverse the operation, so it's not sending anything, it's receiving in case you made a mistake, whatever. You can add one more server, so this is not just sent to this Kafka broker, it's sent to other brokers, and this is, there will be more messages, so, or I can just remove it, like this message is not being sent anymore, whatever. And we can even specify that there's a reply. So I don't know if you know, but in version 3, we released, we're going to release support for request reply patterns. So yeah, so you can say like, we're going to send this, but as a reply, we're going to receive this other message, right? And you can specify things like this from the reply to header. So we don't know that upfront, we don't know the topic in which the reply is going to be published. It's going to be published in the Kafka topic that the reply to header will specify. So when you send in this message here, you have to specify a reply to header, and that's going to be used as a reply topic. Well, don't want to get too deep into request reply, but just so you know. Same thing, you can edit everything here. You can specify Kafka specific configuration. I'm saying Kafka, but if you change to the topic of the protocol of the broker, then it will change as well. Like this is AIMQP, this is WebSocket, whatever. So this is going to change. This is taken from the bindings. So the bindings are also machine readable. We have JSON schema definitions. So we can actually parse these JSON schema definitions and provide a nice UI to help you complete this. Same about security requirements as with servers or brokers. It's the same thing, and the rest. This is, of course, tags and external documentation are always in almost every object, right? So yeah. Okay, so we've seen the user registration application, the broker, and the operation. Let's click on a message because we want to edit the message, right? I think that's one of the most important parts of where you spend really a lot of time, right? So, so I wanted to make this experience as easier as possible, and we're gonna keep improving it because this is not yet fully done, but it's really close to be done, I would say, at least for the first iteration. So you can specify the message ID, the summary, the description. All of this are editable fields, so you can edit them. And of course, you can specify payload and headers if you feel like it should have a payload and a header. And right now, I think one of the most difficult parts of Async API, where people usually get lost very, very frequently, is how do I define my payload and my headers using JSON schema? So it's actually not an issue with Async API, it's an issue with JSON schema. But it's an issue with Async API because we're using JSON schema. So we have to solve it anyway, right? So my point here is that we should be providing a UI, a nice UI for you to edit and create these JSON schema definitions. And that's what we're gonna do, right? We're not inventing anything new here. So Stoplight has a similar component. And if you want to play around, I'll really suggest you to do it, because it's really powerful. And you don't have to learn a lot of JSON schema, maybe a little bit what each type is and mean, but that's it. And so there's no full UI here in this prototype, but you more or less can see where it's going. So this means that it's required still to choose a better icon probably, but you can specify the type or types. For instance, so integer or null, as an array of which kind of object. There are many things. You still have the possibility to open the code editor. So if the visual editor is not enough for you, or you're not sure how it's doing it or whatever, you can come to the code editor and tweak it there yourself, and you can provide examples. Another thing that I'm thinking about, but not yet, is that we can add one more thing here, which is let's say, I don't want to call it AI, right? So let's say machine learning, right? This latest machine learning improvements like large language models, right? Like GPT, like all this stuff, stability and so on. So I think it would be cool if here we had like a prompt or something like, hey, type here what you want to have. And it's like, I want to have a user object with age, 8, and friends. Well, and it generates the user object with all these fields for you. Probably not in the right way in the beginning, but we can play with it and train the model with a lot of JSON schemas from all over the internet. Also taking into account that we're in close contact with the JSON schema faults, so we can probably get a lot of them and train the model with this. So that would be super cool, I think. And maybe if the generated model is not correct, at least it might get you close. So you only have to edit a few things here and there, and that's it. But yeah, I didn't want to include it yet here because for simplicity. So yeah, and the rest of the stuff as usual. Kafka specific configuration, like what's the message key, the location of the schema registry, blah blah blah. This is all generated from the bindings and other stuff, right? So in this case, like where is so what's the content type? Where's the correlation ID? It's in the header on the correlation ID field, and so on and so on. So what I wanted to show with this is that we can really have a fully featured solution to help you edit this SNQPA file, create, edit, modify basically SNQPA files without having to learn SNQPA, right? And that's a cool thing. But going a little bit beyond that, we have a bunch of people usually requesting, it's not here, I can click there because of, okay. So let's see, so for instance, you see that here we have a $ref. Okay, in this case, $ref is easy because it's pointing to our own document because it starts with hashtag, components, and so on. But when you want to reuse certain stuff, you probably want to have another file somewhere else, right? On a GitHub repo, or maybe alongside with your file in the file system, many different ways, right? So you want to point to that specific file, not to your same file, right? So $ref becomes a pain, especially on Studio, because yeah, we cannot really resolve these references well on Studio unless they are public with a public API and so on, which is likely not the case, right? So yeah. So what I want to provide here is let's say in this, I'm gonna explain this the best. So in certain cases, you have APIs where they are the owners of the messages, of the channels, of the, all these definitions. So you can probably define it here in one and create another service, yet another service, right? Side by side, if you want, on your organization, where you can actually point to that other service definition. So you can make them be like a cross-referencing, right? So without, I'm probably getting myself into a rabbit hole here, but what I want to provide with this is the experience of being able to to develop multiple services in a single place. So right now, Studio is just a single service definition, a single async API definition. You cannot have more. You cannot add one more here, right? If you want to edit another stuff, you have to just replace this with something else, and that's it. You cannot save it in any single place altogether to form a project or something like that. There's no way to do that. I want this to be possible. So I want people to be able to create their organization, for instance, their company or their team or whatever they prefer to split things on, and create multiple services and connect them to each other, right? So if I'm publishing a message to the broker, there's a highly probability that there are at least one or more other services consuming this message. So I'm publishing a message to a Kafka broker, but someone else is reading it, right? So I want to have the publisher, but I also want to have the subscriber and so on, right? So all my projects here, and this project is managed by my colleague in another team, and this is managed by me, whatever. So you should be able to tag the services as you prefer, like this is from the product team, this is from the platform team, whatever. You can add hashtags and so on, right? And you should be able to filter them by, I want to list only the ones that have protocol Kafka or protocol WebSocket or their servers, right? So yeah, all this stuff. And I want, of course, to ping all of them here, like some of them, because I'm usually working with these services myself. So I want to have them at hand, so I don't have to search every time I want to work with them, right? Pretty basic stuff, as you can see. I don't think we have finished with the UI of this screen, but I think it provides a minimum, let's say, a minimum design or experience to have all the files in a single place. Now, and I'm gonna finish as soon as possible. I don't want to extend on this too much. So you're probably seeing a lot of icons here on the left and a bunch here as well in the bottom. So yes, we should be providing people a way to sign up and have their own accounts. And no, we should not, at least not now, right? I think we should not have, let's say, a database or something like that, right? We should not be hosting their files or anything like that. Once we get closer to, let's say, to how we're going to implement this, I'm happy to explain how we can do it. But I think it shouldn't be like a database, at least for now, as I'm saying, a database in the cloud. It should be a way, for instance, to this could be async API files in your disk, in your file system, or on your GitHub repo, or in other places, right? But we don't store the async API files, right? So we just get them from whatever they are, your file system, GitHub repo, whatever, right? So yeah. But yeah, you should be able to have like an account if you want, and to have your profile and your organization profile and so on. Of course, you should be able to search for stuff and to add new stuff, a new project, new message, new server, and so on. So, and I'm gonna run with this because it's not defined. There are no additional designs. I only designed this experience about the services, but none of these experiences here are designed yet. So I'm gonna just explain briefly what each of them are. So you know that we have this diagram that this service is publishing a message to the Kafka broker, but at some point someone is gonna listen from this Kafka broker, right? They're gonna subscribe for these messages, to receive these messages. So I want to give a quick shout out to David Boyne's event catalog, right? So yeah, so I think explore events, yeah. I think it's visualizer, yes, and all events and services. So this is what I'm talking about. So David took the time to create this event catalog project, which I think is really cool. And he made it in a way so that you can I'm gonna zoom in so you can see it. We made it in a way so you can see it, like the basket service is publishing these 3 events, right? These 3 events as you see here, which turns out that are gonna be received by payment service, data lake, and I'm not sure because it's really hard to see here. Maybe the other service or maybe not, I'm not sure. So, so yeah, this is a diagram of your whole architecture, of your whole event-driven architecture. Like my service is publishing this message, but this message is going to be received by 3 other services. This is the #1 problem that I often find in when I have calls with async API users, right? Especially large companies. They have no idea of who's receiving what and who's sending what, right? So if I have to change this event here, added item to cart, and I have to make a breaking change there. So for instance, imagine that it has product number field, product number, and I want to call it product ID. That's a breaking change because the payment service will be looking for product number, and product number is not there anymore. It's now called product ID. So I want to make this change, but I fear that whoever is receiving this message is going to break. So my next question is, do I know who's receiving this message? And the majority of people that I have conversations with, actually only one company once replied, yes, we know, we're tracking this down. The majority of them are like, we have no idea, and that's the problem. So we know that this one is publishing, but we don't know who's receiving. So it's a mess. It's a complete mess. It's a wild, wild west, right? So we want to help people discover this information, right? Discover who's sending, who's receiving, and so on. Who is the owner of the message? If I click on one of the services or one of the messages, I should be able to say like, these are the versions of the message, these are the owners, this is the domain if needed, right? All this stuff. This is the documentation for the message. This is a diagram, a generated diagram of how this is being used currently, and this is an example code on how to use it and so on, right? So this is really cool information. By the way, event catalog is integrated with async API. Yeah? So I think you can see it here. Where is it? Plugins. Does it have a link? No. And you'll have to trust me here. I cannot find it. Configuration maybe. Anyway, it has an async API plugin.
I think
so,
it's a plugin.
It's a plugin, but I don't see plugins here. Where is it? No, I don't think so. Well, anyway,
yeah,
you can explore the website and you will easily find it. So it has an async API plugin, so you can actually generate an event catalog using all your async API files, right? So what I want to do is, so event catalog is an offline solution. You have to generate it and then deploy it to your server and so on. What I want to do here is I want to create a similar experience, right? But here, you see this map icon here on the left? This is a map in case you cannot see it well. So I want to offer like a map of your architecture, how things are connected to each other. Similar to what you've seen on event catalog. And even, I will even say more. We should be able to then export this map as an event catalog, right? The project from David. So I'm not saying that we should replace event catalog, not at all. We should integrate with event catalog, right? I'm not saying that, for instance, so there are other tools like Backstage by Spotify and many other products, right? Like including Postman and including Stoplight and so on. So I'm not saying that we should replace all these tools. Instead, we should be integrating with them as much as possible because we don't want people to abandon their workflows just to focus on Studio. No, Studio should be just another tool, right? and we should integrate as much as possible with others. So for instance, if I'm using Backstage as my developer portal for my whole company, then studios will be able to integrate with Backstage and read information from Backstage and even publish information to Backstage or update Backstage somehow. I'm talking here likely because I don't really know well how Backstage operates behind the scenes, but I know it's possible. So yeah, we should integrate things tightly, right? Another thing here on the left side, you see this icon here is like modules if you want. This is a registry. So if you're familiar with schema registries like the one from Confluent, you'll find it really familiar to have a registry here. So what I'm talking here is that if we're going to have multiple services and all of them are going to be publishing or subscribing or sending or receiving information from a broker, from a Kafka broker, we don't want to be defining the Kafka broker in each async API document, right? Because no, because why would you do it, right? So there should be a way to have a registry with an API, right? So that you can use $ref from the async API document and point to that studio registry, right? If you want to, or it will let you create a GitHub registry. For instance, you have a folder in your GitHub, in a GitHub repo or somewhere. We'll see how, we have to integrate as much as possible with current workflows, right? We don't have to try to break people's workflows. So yeah, the idea is to have a registry that we can then use in $ref, or to say it in another way. If I want to add a new server here, which by the way, it should be here as well, which I forgot to add it. If I want to add a server here, it will give me the option to create a new one or take one from the registry, right? And even if I create a new one, once I create it, it's like, I want to add it to the registry, right? I want to add this Kafka broker or this one to the registry. So it's available for others to reuse it, right? Same with messages, same with schemas, same with any part of an async API document that can be reused, right? For instance, everything that's under components in async API is potentially a registry item, right? That is going to be shared across many documents. So yeah, it's like going a little bit beyond the schema registry from Confluent or other companies. But instead of just being schemas, it's about the schemas of our async API pieces. Governance is another one. So I would like I would love that we propose a way to include governance at organization-wide or in your profile or whatever you want to call it, so that we can apply Spectral rules to all your async API files. So this will increase consistency. You can think about it like SLint or Prettier or this kind of configurations, but for all your files or your async API files. And there you can enforce things like I don't know, if I have a broker, if I have a server right here, don't add the broker word at the end, right? Or if I have user registration service, don't add service at the end, or don't add API at the end, or even more, don't leave descriptions empty, right? You can apply all kind of rules. I just mentioned the most stupid ones, right? Like the ones that usually people have it, but these are not the most valuable, right? The most valuable can be like, this one's like, for instance, I want to make sure that everyone provides a description to each message, each broker, each operation, so that things are easily understandable, right? And everything is properly documented. I want to make sure that all bindings are specified, that all security requirements are specified and meet specific criteria. So it's all about you. And of course, these two icons can be merged probably in a single one, but yeah, this is your organization settings. So this is where you invite people to your organization to collaborate together. This is where change the name of the organization, the URL, or whatever, right? So all this stuff. This is only probably Teams, inviting people and so on. This will be like once this is like a, it's like it's offered as a service somehow, right? It's not just in your laptop. But yeah, I'm happy to give more details on how we could implement this. And but yeah, what I'm going to suggest is that we work on this. So we now have this, right? We work on this little redesign here to include all the sidebar here and the top bar here. So we get rid of this useless top bar that is occupying space but not offering much help. And yeah, so we redesign this and that we create this as a starting point, right? So we create this visualizer, and the rest will be coming after. So this service, I thought I could come from here, maybe here. Okay, so this services list will be next after that, of course. And all the stuff here will be next after that. So step by step. But I wanted you to have an overview of what's in my mind, right? And so I think I lost, not this. Anyway, I lost the link, but I'm gonna just use it from here maybe. Okay. So this is the written form of what I just explained, which is probably shorter, but yeah. I recommend you to have a look, give feedback, get involved, please. And if you have any questions now, which I see you do, let me see. Let me go through the chat. Feel free to chime in. Unmute yourself and ask questions. Yeah, for sure. I want to clarify the editor functionality will never be removed, never. Right, so that's for sure. Because I always have the same feeling. Like I don't know if what I'm doing on the UI will be what I want to have on the code. Might happen that it's not exactly what I want. So I should still have the opportunity to go to the code and touch it myself and fix things here and there. Obviously, over time, we should be improving the UI as much as possible so this doesn't happen, right? So, or it happens not very frequently. Yeah, so as Ace said, like Spec JSON Schema now has examples on version 2.6, and yeah, so the examples tab could actually benefit from that. Must probably, or I'm not sure. I think these are examples about your specific payload, like your specific business use case. So, but it definitely can help with, if you hover on the UI, if you hover over a field like a description or, I don't know, something from a Kafka binding or something like that, it can give you a broader explanation of what it means, right? So it can have documentation built in on the UI. That's for sure. Thanks, Samir, for sharing the plugin, the event catalog plugin. Yeah, as Samir said, we're working. Actually, he's working on the roadmap on the Studio project that you can find there, where he linked it, and. So Ashish is asking, like, where will these authorization rules and user data be stored then? On async API files. So all this information is always in an async API file, right? It's just that it's the same as the code editor, just so you don't have to type it. It will be on the code. You can then switch to the code editor and copy and paste, and that's it. You store it wherever you want. The other option that we are gonna look to implement is that you can sync with your file disk. So whenever you are working on multiple async API files on Studio, this could be automatically saved to your file disk. since this is a web app, you cannot really access the file system directly, right? But we do have a CLI, right? So we can use the CLI to link the file system and Studio on the web app, so they can be the CLI could be bridging Studio to save the files on the disk. There are many ways. We can even create a background application that you can install on your system, and it will spin up a local server. And whenever you do a change, it will write to your disk and read from your disk whenever you need it, and so on. So there are multiple ways to overcome this limitation. And the same with GitHub. Where is it stored? So if you're using GitHub, you probably want, and you make a change, and you click a button because you think it's ready now, you probably, you can automatically create a pull request with the new SMTP definition, so, or push directly to master or to main, whatever is your preferred way, right? So, or maybe not, maybe we never offered this functionality, and since you can write to the disk on your laptop, you can then do all these operations on your laptop, like git add, git push, create branches, and so on, right? So, as I said, like we still have to figure out what's the path that we want to take, but it's not that there are paths or not. There are multiple paths. We just have to choose, right? So yeah. So Rishi is asking like something like Firebase maybe. I think Firebase, if I recall correctly, is a database, but it's also authentication and so on. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I forgot what Firebase is. But maybe. So Ashish says like, then the SMKPI files will be stored in GitHub account itself in the repository. As you wish, could be on your file system, but your files, if you store it in your file system in one folder, and this folder is a Git repo, then you can push it to your GitHub repo, right? You decide, like, I want to sync this SMTP definition with the file that I have on my folder, projects, code, whatever, my awesome API, SMKPI YAML. I want to sync it with that specific file. So if I go to IntelliJ IDEA, for instance, and modify it on IntelliJ IDEA, it will be synchronized to Studio, right? And Studio will catch it. So you can go to Visual Studio Code, you can go to IntelliJ IDEA, you can edit it in your favorite editor if you want, you can edit it in your Studio editor if you want, right? And you can use the visual editor, whatever you want. So it's just one more tool for you, right? So nothing changes. Really, nothing changes. It's just what changes is the visual editor right now. So you don't have to type the code. But where do you store the code? Up to you. There are many options. Like it's now. Like right now, it's in the local storage. You want to keep it on the local storage? Keep it on the local storage. Just beware that if you clean local storage, if you break your laptop or something, then you might lose it, right? So yeah. Yeah, sorry for that. So it's so as Samir is mentioning, let me share let me share my screen again. Okay. So before I leave this, so this is by the way, if someone needs an invitation to join Figma, please let me know. This is an open source account. Actually, it's a student account, but but yeah, everyone should be able to get a link. I'm trying to make it as public as possible, as you can see, so everyone can see it. But if you want to help editing the designs and creating new designs and so on, feel free to ask for access. So yeah, I try to extract all the components as individual components here, right? So as you can see, there are a bunch of them. Not gonna get into the details of each of them, but we want to be implementing this in a way that we do it here. I mean, actually not here, it's gonna be on the Studio repo, but we want to have a design system like, okay, find the example. We want to create a design system using Storybook. That's already done, by the way. So we just don't have a proper URL yet. It's just this URL for now. But we have a design, we have the Storybook more or less set up. Actually, not much, as you can see. But yeah, the idea is that we have all the, all the components here. So as a matter of an example, you can have the logo component, you can have the sidebar. So sidebar can be with top and bottom items, with top items only, bottom items only, blah, blah, blah. No items, no sidebar. And all the stuff like models and so on. I want to have, I want us to work on this so that we split this design and we work on a design system, right? Instead of working directly in Studio in the hacker way, we implement all these little details, these little components in a design system here, right? Why? Because the more we build on a design system, then if we build all these components in the design system, then if someone wants to reuse this component here or this other component here, it's going to be as easy as importing them from the design system, right? So people don't have to redo the work and they don't have to take design decisions, because I know, because I've seen it, that some people get, let's say, stress because they have to take design decisions and they're not good with design, or they don't feel comfortable taking design decisions. And then you end up with a mess, with a design that's a mess and it's not properly crafted and so on. So now that we have some people who love to design in the community and love to build design systems and maintain design systems and so on, I think it's a good opportunity that we all join forces there. That we can have people owning the design system and making sure that it has a consistent design, right? And so people can benefit to create new pages, new views on Studio to build the UI quickly, right? So yeah, just as I said, like it was going to be there, right? It was going to be on the design system repo, but I recently opened a pull request to make it part of Studio. So we make the Studio repo a mono repo, right? That will include Studio, the design system, and a bunch of other shared resources, right? So yeah. So it's not yet finished, but it's going to be. I hope it's going to make it, and that we can figure out how to solve automation problems and so on. So yeah. And that's it. Anything? I know we're over time, but I'm happy to share to answer any questions. Or so we have.
I just want to mention something also regarding the design system. As you see, the visual editor is quite complex. So we have a lot of components, and by having the design system, we can also somehow split the work. So not having dependencies between the components. So the more components we have in the design system is better. So we can also have this visual editor as something that we can iterate over in let's say an easy way. That's one of the motivation as well. It'd be great.
Yep. I want to read from the chat that we have on YouTube. So Rajendra Kashi asked 3 questions that are, I think, worth explaining as well. So I'm going to share my screen quickly again. I should probably stop. doing this and not sharing my screen. So just to make it clear, so when you click on a message, let's say this view, right? When you click on a message, you can see, oh, okay, sorry. So the questions actually are, just curious where we can see the message structure. Cool, so when you click on a message, you can see payload, headers, and other things about the message, right? So like the message key and so on. So these are all the stuff that you can put on a message. So yeah, you can edit everything here on that view. So everything will be here, headers, payload, whatever. Another question, which is a good question. How to support one-off, any-off, and all-off options in the Visual Editor. I will even go further. How to support if then else, not, and all these things. So that's something that we have to figure out here on this editor. I think one way to do it is the way that the stoplight faults did it. You can do it. You can specify here in this object. You can click in this object and say this is this object can be one of these two objects, right? Can be this object or this other object, or can be any of them, or all of, or you can apply if then else and so on. We just need to figure out how to visualize it. But the cool thing is that we have bounty issue, not the bounty. Sorry, it's I think it's in KPI React. It's a mentorship program issue. So there are these two issues. Docs UI is exactly this, or is kind of this. So messages object output. This is one of them. Missy already explored a lot of it. So I'm happy to share this link with all of you because I think it's an important one that we're going to see improvement over the next months. So, or I hope. So quickly here, where are the mocks? So she's been exploring a bunch of different options, like conditions in case you have if then else, how to render everything, to have the conditions here on a tab, many ways. You can, she actually recorded a few videos. So I really recommend it if you haven't looked at this, because it's really interesting. And another one is this UX UI updates. So, sidebar navigation, info object, service object, messages object outputs, which is the one that I shared right now, and so on. So this is for the documentation part of it. So there are two mentees who are going to work on this, right? Not selected yet, but there will be two mentees to work on this. So yeah, we will see some advancement on this. And Rajendra said, another thought came, sometimes they are setting up server. In those cases, can we have mock servers supported? Yes, we do. We can do it. And that's actually a really good question. That's like really looking forward. So not in the beginning, obviously, but we have this project, Microx, who are part of the community, who are supporting async KPI, right? And they actually provide this. So mocking and testing using your async KPI files. So it will be possible, it's possible actually, that we integrate with Microx, right? But again, how we will integrate, we could integrate with Microx, let's see. There are ways for sure. And it's gonna be in the beginning, for sure not, because that's gonna be a lot of work. But yeah, there are other, let's say, basic things to cover in the meantime, right? And to develop in the meantime. So yeah. Anything else, folks? Excited? Am I crazy? Thoughts? All right, so please chime in the issue that I shared. If you want to get involved, so we're gonna invest a huge amount of time in this now, and I really think that this could actually become, if not the future of Async API, it's going to be an important part of Async API. I'm suspecting it's going to be. So yeah, let's see how things evolve. But I'm suspecting that this could be huge, and this is going to be huge. It just depends on us as a community if we manage to build it or not, and to make it happen, right? So yeah. Again, ping me privately or in the issue, or the way you prefer if you want to get involved, and or Samir as well. So Samir will be helping with the management of the project and also with the development whenever he has time. So far is Huda. So Huda is going to be working. Ace offered help as well, and Ashish, or all of them are in the call, by the way. And Akshat, I think he also offered help. Not sure now that he's on Amazon during the summer, but if he will have a lot of time, but for sure he will be invited.
I see Jonas as well. Jonas
is, I don't think he's gonna be. I think he has a lot of.
He joined the call, so.
He joined the call because he's just curious. So yeah, and others like Peter, like Subic, will be supporting us on the CLI side, right, and on the GLI side. So another thing that I envision that we could do in the future is, from Studio directly, you could be probably building your API, building your service, the code, the actual code, typing it there, or somehow synchronizing it with your files, and then deploying it to AWS or Netlify or whatever you want to execute it, right? And you can create probably your GLI project from Studio and deploy it, or not GLI, some other kind of framework. So this could really become an important tool, right? And so yeah, that's why I wanted Peter to and Subic to be in this call, so they're both aware of it, so we can integrate. So it's not just about Studio, right? So the whole thing here is about everything integrated nicely. So that's it's more than just a single project or a single repo. So yeah.
Great.
All right, folks. Way above the time, way beyond the time. So hope you liked it, and in the next weeks, we'll be organizing other calls, but this time it will be to synchronize our work, right? To how we can split the task, how we're gonna organize ourselves. So Samir is doing a great job there, and he's gonna have a lot of proposals for that. And yeah, feel free to join those meetings. I will say only if you're gonna contribute, because if you're not gonna contribute, you're probably gonna get bored. But maybe you just want to see and watch and how things go, and maybe at some point you get involved. And yeah, you don't need to be involved full time, by the way. You can just, even if you can't want to get involved from time to time, that's also fine. Even if you are junior and you have no idea how we could make this, that's not a problem. Unfortunately, we have lots of people in the team in the community, right, around the Studio that knows how to build this from scratch. So yeah, that's not going to be a problem. You're going to be mentored along the way if you don't know how. And if you do, if you're experienced, please bring your experience with us. So yeah, everyone welcome. Cheers. Bye-bye.
See you.